I'll tell you why Bill Belichick just cost the Patriots that Super Bowl.
And I'm Colin Coward, and I'll tell you why Tom Brady should have been Super Bowl MVP.
Can't wait to hear
It's
this.
embarrassing to do.
Can't wait to hear this.
Speak for yourself starts now.
LeBron James is going to be very jealous looking at you play kiss-up with Tom Brady. All right, hello and welcome. We're joined today by Fox NFL analyst Tony Gonzalez and former NFL head coach Eric Mangini. Let's start in Minneapolis, where Nick Foles had the game of his life leading the Eagles in an epic shootout last night to beat the Patriots for their first Super Bowl in team history and their first championship in almost 60 years. This game had it all. A David versus Goliath quarterback matchup, wild trick plays, and a last-second Hail Mary that fell just out of reach. In fact, probably the only thing missing from this game was defense, with several offensive records set, including the most combined yards in any game in the entire history of the NFL. Here's Super Bowl MVP Nick Foles after the game.
You know, a couple years ago, there was a time where I was thinking about hanging up the cleats. And, you know, I think as people, you know, we deal with struggles. And that was, you know, a moment in my life where, you know, I thought about it and, you know, I prayed about it. And, you know, I'm grateful that I made the decision to come back here and play.
You know, this whole postseason, Nick has shown exactly who he is and what he can do and what he's capable of doing. He's well deserved of the honor, but I know that he would give credit where credit's due, and he had a lot of playmakers tonight make plays for him on both sides of the ball.
Weren't able to perform at our best. Obviously didn't do a good enough job coaching. Missed a lot of opportunities offensively in the first half. Didn't play good enough defense. Didn't play good enough in a kicking game. It just wasn't quite enough against a good team like Philadelphia.
You know, I'd obviously love to not have it stripped from me, so I was just holding the ball, trying to get it downfield, and those guys had a good rush and got in there and made a good play. And that's what they've been doing that all year. I mean, we knew they had a good rush, and they made a good play. They made a good play. They made a good play at the right time. I mean, they made one good play at the right time.
Cowherd, did that offensive explosion make last night the best Super Bowl ever?
No, I don't think I'm going to be sitting with my kids in 25 years saying, remember that Nick Foles Super Bowl? That was the greatest ever. I thought it was sloppy. I think there was a little controversy.
Sloppy.
Like, I thought New England special teams were a mess. I thought there were mental errors, 12 men on the field. Nelson Aguilar runs out of bounds. Listen, I've seen 8 New England Super Bowls. They've all ended like this. There was the David Tyree catch, to me, was better. Listen, I thought last year's game, the Edelman catch, is one of the most absurd things I've ever seen. I'll tell you this, the Seattle game, to me, was the best game ever. That game, the Russell Wilson completion down the sideline, then they don't run it. That to me, is the best Super Bowl I've ever seen. But I've also seen Terry Bradshaw, you know, our teammate here, in 2 or 3 all-time Super Bowls.
Look, I think that was the modern version of football. That's what they've been building for.
Yeah.
All the rule changes that they've made over the last 20 years were to create that Super Bowl.
Yeah.
But it looked like a well-played Pro Bowl. Offenses just going up and down the field. And so to me, I do think for what they're trying to do, this was the ideal Super Bowl. For me, I like to see defense played. I like to see big momentum changes because of turnovers, because of, you know, you've changed field position and you force people to punt. And so for me, I enjoyed it. It was entertaining, but the best ever always includes a great defensive performance matched against a great offensive performance. And we just had 2 tremendous offenses just going up and down the field. And I'm sure those that play Madden and my mother and people like that love the hell out of that game.
Yeah, we're not even talking about a great defensive performance. We would have liked to have seen some defensive performance. And it's a situation where you have one punt in the game, and it's a little bit like arena football, just going back and forth. In terms of great Super Bowls, I thought the Seattle-New England Super Bowl, where it ends on the goal line. But remember the Tennessee-St. Louis Super Bowl,
ends on the
where it
goal
ends up, what is it, a yard short, or a little less than a yard short on the last play. I did like the fact that Philadelphia overcame what they overcame. I like the storyline with Nick Foles. I like those types of stories, and that's, to me, what made it.
I do think we're going to be talking about Nick Foles 20 years from now, though.
Especially, you mean Nicky Foles. All right, Nicky Foles. Statues everywhere in Philly. I enjoyed it. I would say this. I don't know if it's the best game. It's the most exciting game to me for all the reasons that you guys said. And also the stories. You bring up a good point. The Nicky Foles thing, honestly. Come on.
It's got a Rocky feel to it.
It's unbelievable to me. And that's what makes it so enjoyable to see against all odds, against Tom Brady and Bill Belichick, and you got this backup quarterback who was considering leaving the league. I mean, this is drama. This is Steven Spielberg. This is Oscar-winning performance. I don't know who's going to – Mark Wahlberg's probably going to play him. It's going to be a great story just from that standpoint. And then, obviously, going up and down the field, I like points. I know there was no punting, but that's what I like to see. The catch – they got the catch calls. I'm sure we're going to talk about that a little bit. I enjoyed every aspect of this game.
There were fascinating decisions made in this game, too.
No question.
That added to – that's what kind of offset the lack of defense, just in terms of what Doug Peterson did right before halftime. And I know there was a lot of focus on that going forward in the trick play, but what he did on the final drive on fourth down – when I think a lot of guys, even with the Patriots offense moving up and down, may have punted or certainly wouldn't have thrown the ball there with Nick Foles. I just thought there were just fascinating decisions all the way to, again, we got the whole mystery around Malcolm Butler and why he stood on the sideline. This is, you know what, this is one of the most memorable Super Bowls, and so many different things happen.
Most great games are imperfect. I mean, they really are. If you go to Alabama, the Alabama-Georgia game, Alabama had a player go after a coach. They had a player collapse. They butchered a kick.
Backup quarterback comes in.
Yeah, I mean, literally, that's the drama. I mean, like this drama, we have a controversial call. We have a Hail Mary. We have Nelson Aguilar runs out of bounds. There was Bill Belichick didn't go for it in the fourth. Doug Peterson in his own territory did go for it in the fourth down. So there's a lot of, I always think great games have good arguments at a bar an hour after. And this definitely, it is a great Super Bowl. I just think the Seattle, that Marshawn Lynch, Russell Wilson, Malcolm Butler play to me is one of the plays of my life.
I agree, but it's one play. There's several things that happen here that I'll never forget.
Well, in Tom Brady's first Super Bowl, the fact that, I mean, his story was pretty unique. We're coming as a sixth-round draft pick, getting to play after Drew Bledsoe gets hurt. We get into the playoffs. We have that final drive. We're 14-point underdogs. And there were a lot of subplots to that as well. I'd argue that could be in there.
Clearly the Pats could have used some help on defense, which is why everybody's scratching their heads over Belichick's decision to bench the hero of Super Bowl 49, cornerback Malcolm Butler. After the game, Butler said the team, quote, gave up on him, while Belichick said he did what was best for the team. Yeah, right. Former Patriot Brandon Browner disagreed on Instagram, posting, quote, a locker room was divided pregame, most yards ever given up in a Super Bowl game, and your best defender over the past 3 seasons doesn't get a snap. You were hurt/burnt where he was needed tonight. Foolish pride. The post was liked by both current Patriot Dante Hightower and former Patriot Jamie Collins. Whitlock, did Belichick's pride cost the Patriots the football game?
Last night I thought it did. This morning, today, I don't think it's about pride. I actually think Bill Belichick is taking one for Malcolm Butler. I think if Bill Belichick wanted to spell out the reasons why Malcolm Butler got benched, people would be like, oh, I get it. And Browner's had some additional posts over social media that allude to some potential problems involving Malcolm Butler that caused him to be benched. I think Bill Belichick is actually taking the high road here, not throwing Malcolm Butler under the bus when he's leaving New England. He won him a Super Bowl with a big play. I think out of respect for Malcolm Butler, Belichick, he's not going to say why Malcolm Butler got benched, but I don't think it's foolish pride. I think it was irresponsible behavior by Malcolm Butler that I would imagine led to this.
Well, even as a parent, if you're too rigid or your punishment's too strong, there's repercussions. You know, that's the dad that doesn't let the daughter do anything. You know, she ends up being the rebel. And if the stories are true, what Malcolm Butler did, it doesn't feel like a game suspension. It feels like a dumb move. You keep a guy out for a quarter. I think in the end, if a 53-man roster, 52 guys paid the punishment for one guy. And I don't like that. I don't like that. And I remember in high school.
That's why I blame Malcolm Butler.
I'm not saying he's not culpable, but if everybody else worked for the last 7 months on this team, and literally one of the defensive backs was like, yeah, I didn't know before the game. So now my assignments change against a multiple offense that's well coached.
This is a really difficult situation when you coach the secondary and work in the secondary and you prepare one way throughout the course of the process. The player understands how he fits in the scheme. Everybody understands how they fit in relationship to that player. And then suddenly it changes right before. It's a problem, especially against an offense like this with shifts and motions and all the things that go into it. But just like the Garoppolo trade, we're never going to figure out the different layers behind this. And there has to be something that made him make the decision that's a lot deeper than just one event. To me, it's got to be bigger than that. And look, Malcolm Butler needs to get his story out, because when he goes into free agency, you're talking about one of the greatest, or arguably the greatest defensive coach, benches you before the Super Bowl. Teams are going to need a little bit more than, I don't know why he did it, before they sign him.
Yeah, and because of what you just said there, I refuse to believe that Belichick would compromise his team to send a message to one player in a Super Bowl game. I just don't. I don't see that. And I thought more about it too. Like with you last night, and I think on your show earlier, I was saying, yeah, that might have been foolish, or maybe if he could think about this, Belichick, maybe he would change his mind. But I don't think so. I think he felt in his heart, this guy can't help us. He can't deal with the shifts. I don't know what it is. But there's something there that I have to trust the great one. Why would you go against what Belichick's doing now?
In this game, though, Jason, it was different. First of all, New England's never sloppy on special teams. They were. They never got a pass rush. They're the great adjusting team. They never adjusted defensively. They were as bad in the second as they were in the first. Didn't go for it in fourth. I guess that's a coin flip. It didn't. There was so much noise leading up to the Super Bowl. Documentaries. This whole week, they were off brand.
I went into this game at the end of the week saying Philadelphia was going to win because I thought something was off with the Patriots. But again, circling back to Malcolm Butler specifically, they wanted to trade him. You know, he won them a Super Bowl, and they wanted to move on from him. That's an indication that there's more of a problem with Malcolm Butler than just his on-field performance. He sounds like a high-maintenance guy, and I guarantee you, if Belichick made this decision, it's about what transpired all season long, and he got to a final straw Super Bowl week.
And there's a lot of truth to that. What comes out in the media is such a tip of the iceberg in terms of what really happens throughout the course of the season in the locker room. We only find out a small percentage of it, so you would have to imagine this was the final straw, as opposed to a one-off event where he said, okay, hey, I'm going to make this decision. You know,
he won you a Super Bowl, and you wanted to trade him. You wanted to move on.
And also, let's remember that this defense was thin to begin with. Hightower's gone. So you're thinking to yourself, I mean, if you watch the film, you guys watch film, Philadelphia's O-line jumps off the tape. You're probably thinking to yourself, we're not going to get a huge pass rush, meaning I need my best defensive backs.
Maybe he's not the best, though. That's the thing about it. Maybe he's just not that good compared to the other guys. Maybe he understands the scheme better.
What bothers me the most about this is, or concerns me the most, is Dante Hightower liking what Brandon Browner said. This is the defensive captain, and he's got a 3-year extension. That to me stood out as more than anything.
That stands out to me because I think it's frustration. He just lost the Super Bowl, and come hell or high water, he wanted Malcolm Butler out there because he gave him the best chance. Tony, you can't. He played 98% of their snaps during the regular season.
And Jacksonville.
You can't go from that to you don't even play in dime and nickel situations?
Come on, though. Do you really think in a Super Bowl situation, I'm going to say, you know what, I'm going to send a message to this guy?
No, I don't think it's about
to cost me a Super Bowl? I'm just saying, I think we can win without him. That's what it's saying.
He's definitely saying that, but I think he's also just staying true to his message to the team. The Patriots, going all the way back to their first Super Bowl, no one's bigger than the team. Next man up. He's been preaching that for 17, 18 years, and Malcolm Butler, it seems like to me, must have just been pushing and pushing and pushing the envelope. Belichick?
Safe to say he's gone.
All right.
Not be on there.
Coming up, Cowherd is actually saying that Tom Brady should have won the Super Bowl.